Bill Aulet is the Managing Director of the Martin Trust Center for MIT Entrepreneurship and a professor at the MIT Sloan School of Management. His first book, Disciplined Entrepreneurship, has been translated into 18 languages. In 2012, Lulu Kazanbaz was the winner of The Entrepreneur, a business reality show aired on Dubai One TV. She is the founder of Nabish, the very first virtual skills marketplace in the Middle East. Pablo Sanchez Santo Femia is helping to democratize access to entrepreneurial resources through Bridge for Billions. Its aim is to make entrepreneurship ecosystems more efficient, transparent, and inclusive for everyone. Dana Shaddad is the founder of Imtiaz Middle East, a company specializing in the areas of entrepreneurship, development, and innovation. Her goal is to create a startup ecosystem in the Middle East, North Africa, and other emerging markets.
Let me take a quick seat here to pick up the microphone. Without a wireless. This is an incredibly important session because this is quite a radical period of time. I was thinking about it because I have two children the age of 15 and 12, and they're in a quite traditional education in the UK today, intense study, but they don't know what the jobs of the next 5 years are going to look like when they emerge from university. It's the case here in a very young country where 70% of the population is below 30, which creates a great opportunity, but a great challenge. And a similar theme for the newbies of the Middle East and North Africa, and you can extend that to South Asia. We have a population boom, a technology revolution taking place at the same time, and jobs of the future, the very near future that we can't define today. It's the new work world that also includes a term which is very foreign to those sitting in this audience, which is called the gig economy. That's what we're going to talk about for the next 45 minutes. We have a few surprises in store thereafter, so I invite you to stay very alert because there's going to be some fun happening in about 45 minutes. We're going to have a lot of fun in the first 40 minutes of the debate. But to shake things up a little bit, and this was not my idea, but I'd like to take ownership of it, I want our panel to stand up, take to the edge of the stage. I need everybody in the audience to take a stand. We're going to take a gigantic selfie to show you how important this panel is and get it posted onto social media before we get started. Who's going to be our photographers here? I can't. My arms aren't long enough.
I've never done it.
We need you to shout out Misk Global Forum 2017. When I go like this, make it happen. I want to hear it. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Bill's wrestling the camera. 4. What are we going to say here? That's pathetic. One more time. Misk Global Forum. Good. Okay, thanks for playing along. We appreciate it. Did that wake you up? The idea was to get the juices flowing for our debate. Yeah, that's fair enough. And we invite questions from the floor. We have about 35 minutes to have this very good debate. And I'm going to invite Bill to start us, right? Somebody who spends his life on entrepreneurship. And then we have 3 young entrepreneurs coming from different parts of the world with very different experiences. And before Bill jumps in, one of the themes that came up during our green room discussion was we have to rethink accessibility to entrepreneurship of the future. It has to be much flatter. Bill Gates brought it up in the conversation in his opening remarks and also in the roundtable. If we want to have an inclusive world, it has to be very inclusive in all countries of the world to have access to funds to create businesses. How do you define, Bill, in a minute, new work today? How do you see it?
Well, first of all, salam alaikum. It's great to be back in Riyadh. Last time I was here, the room was split up, and so it's so nice to see it together now.
It's a little bit split. It's great. By the way, for those of us who've been traveling to this great country for the last 20 years, Live music for the national anthem, didn't go over me. We had our partners' dinner with a jazz band in the back. It's a fantastic, refreshing change. I think we have to give credit to where credit's due. The Crown Prince is changing things quite radically, I would say.
So things are definitely changing. So let me just give you new work. I'm an old white guy, and I joined the workforce in 1981. And when I got a job, I was told I had a job for life at a company called IBM, because IBM would be forever, and they would never lay anybody off. I left IBM in 1993 after I'd gone to MIT to become an entrepreneur. And my parents, people came up to my parents in my hometown. They said, "What happened to Bill? He was such a nice boy. I hear he's unemployed." Well, here it was after I'd done that, and it was the 2000s, and my friends from IBM were calling me up asking me, "Can I come work for you?" Because there was no job for life. You have to take your own job into your own hands. You can't depend on other people. So the future of work is making yourself fully employable, is to not depend on other people, to be a job creator as opposed to a job seeker. And that's what we do with our students at MIT now, and we're very, very proud of it.
Interesting. Before we bring in the rest of the panel, is it as much of a challenge in the United States and that entrepreneurship program that you're involved in as it is here? Because I think the young audience is looking, is like, wow, this is quite a leap. We're asking us to completely retrain our minds to the traditions of our family.
Well, I think the challenge is what you talked about before. That is, we can take small groups of people at MIT and we can make them into entrepreneurs. But that creates some problems because you're only doing thousands of people, whereas we need to do millions of people. And so to scale it, we need to have high quality entrepreneurship. And the fact of the matter is that entrepreneurship is a new field of study. It is a new profession. It isn't something that was around just 20 years ago. And before you scale it, we always say, you have to nail it before you scale it. And so we have to have a rigorous field of entrepreneurship with a rigorous way to train entrepreneurs. And that's difficult because it is not a science. The good news is it isn't art either. It's actually a craft. It's something that we can teach people, but we need to have the right approach to do it, and it takes apprenticeship as opposed to just, you know, one online course.
Okay, Dan, let me go to the end of the podium here and bring this local from what Bill was suggesting here. You have the government today as the dominant employer. Family trading groups make up about 2/3 of the GDP, at least in the Gulf states. And then you have this idea is you want to be an entrepreneur. That's a clash of culture. So how do we break through that? You've done it yourself because you're an entrepreneur.
Sure. So I think one of the biggest challenges is the cultural aspect that you've just highlighted, which is I'm expected to go into a government job because it pays me a salary at the end of the day. I'm expected to go into my family business because my father was there, my grandfather was there. It's been the family for 30, 40, 50 years. So suddenly I have to go home or I want to go home and say to my dad or my mom or my brothers, guess what? I don't want to do any of that and I want to go and start my own business. This is a big conversation. Dealing with youth across the region, I can say this is across the board and not country specific. This is probably one of the hardest conversations that youth have had to have with their families, particularly when the older generation, or traditionally speaking, when you have opportunities of security being a paid job, you're going to work from 8 to 2, that you're going to receive a salary in your bank account at the end of the day, and that is exactly in the epitome, the opposite of, in fact, what entrepreneurship is, which is the risk, which is you don't know when money is going to hit your bank account, which is failing a lot, learning a lot. So this is obviously one of the key issues that youth are dealing with. The other one is, and I say this carefully, the almost too many options. Now with the high level of awareness of the future job market, of what entrepreneurship is going to look like, what jobs are going to look like, what the gig economy is going to look like in the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, it's become very clear to stakeholders, being private or public, and to governments, as we are sitting here today in Riyadh and Saudi hosted by the government, that the youth need to lead this change and they need to take charge of it. And if I was sitting in the crowd and listening to this, one of the questions I'd be asking myself is, what am I supposed to do? But I can join this boot camp and be an entrepreneur. But wait, but the government's offer me this amazing internship. Should I go and do that? Or hang on, Nabish is a fantastic platform, or Upwork is a fantastic platform. Maybe I should just be a freelancer because I love design or I love art. What should I do? So I think there's a bombardation currently of these options, of this noise, of these messages, that is also difficult to cut through, to figure out what am I really good at, what do I want to do, and what skills do I really need to survive in the future. So
good. Pablo, let's bring up that thought I was flagging with Bill Gates last night, and that is accessibility to capital in developing countries. So we were defining this group as A and B targets for entrepreneurship. This is a government that wants to see diversification. This is a government that wants to empower the youth. But you're working in different corners of the developing world. What are you finding here in terms of accessibility and capital? And Lulu, bring your mic around for yourself. Yeah, afterwards. Go ahead, Pablo.
So one of the things that we see is that, and this is a reality for every entrepreneurship ecosystem in the world, is that unfortunately, a very small percentage of the population, of the entrepreneurs' population, are having access to the right training, to high-quality training, and access to capital to launch their businesses. And this is across the world, like from Silicon Valley, from New York, Shanghai, Spain, wherever you are. Entrepreneurs that are right now having access to the great resources are people that most times, they can allow themselves to take more risks. And at the end, because, being an entrepreneur is about taking risk. And if you come from a low-income family or you have a lot of challenges, it tends to be harder for you to take risks. So you tend to go for a safer option. So in the new economy, we can't afford that. Because if the entrepreneurs of the world right now are only these 1% of the entrepreneurs, we're in a very serious situation. The world needs entrepreneurs from all different socioeconomic statuses, genders, cultures. And right now, the ecosystems are not ready for that.
Well, you're actually working in two of the most populated countries of the world, in India and China. You go out to Southeast Asia and Thailand. Do people get this? Do they get the gravity of the change that's knocking at our door with artificial intelligence, the opportunity it could provide, but also the threat?
So, entrepreneurship has always existed, and I'm a firm believer that technology technology is a tool, but innovation exists everywhere, and we can have a lot of innovation without technology. The main challenge is creating those small businesses so that the economies, mainly in developing countries, they can develop. There are a lot of micro enterprises, a lot of large companies, but they're not a lot of SMEs. It's like what in economic development is called the missing middle. And developing countries need more SMEs, and the way you do it is by promoting entrepreneurship.
Good. Lula, how are you defining the gig economy today? It's not a term we use. I've lived in the region now for 7 years full time. It's not something that rolls off the tongue for most in the audience.
Yeah. So the gig economy or the sharing economy, it's pretty much someone making use of their assets, whether it's physical assets or their time or their services, and basically put it to use to the greater public. So for example, if I have a skill as a designer, I can be part of the gig economy as a freelance designer, for example, so I can put my skills to use to deliver great designs to my clients. Some people are participating in the gig economy through the likes of Uber by, driving people, or Kareem. So this is the big kind of definition of the gig economy. So you're participating through your assets, your physical assets, or your skills, or your time to do services to other people.
Okay. What do you answer to your parents that said, okay, I just paid X amount of money for a college degree and you're kind of hanging about, I'm working here, working there, it's not quite a full-time living, I know I'm going to make it work, mom and dad hang in there? Or?
So you see, it's funny because you know, we talk about people like graduating from university and getting a job as if it's like a given and it's going to happen, while in fact, I mean, in the Arab world, we have one of the highest unemployment rates in the world, especially among youth. So actually, the option of graduating and finding a job immediately is you know, it's may or may not happen. 1 in 4 people are not going to get a job. So the gig economy or being a freelancer is, you know, to some people it's a necessity because it's the only way to put their skills, what they've learned in university, put it to use, learn more skills that sometimes they don't learn at university. So when you are a freelancer, you don't, let's say I'm a freelance designer, I don't only have to be a good designer, I have to be good at selling myself to clients, I have to be good at managing expectations, I have to learn how to manage my financials. So you actually become a mini business on your own, and it gives you some amazing skills to be able to either get a job or transition from being a freelancer to having your own business. Actually, a lot of freelancers, they start as a one-man or one-woman service provider, and then, you know, they become successful, and then they become a business, and this is how, you know, you progress if you're good. So also there is the, you know, there is the option of supplementing your income. So let's say you have a job and you finish at 2 and you have a lot of time and you, let's say, are passionate about photography. You can be a freelance photographer, for example, in the afternoon, and you can earn sometimes more than you would earn on the job, like in countries like you know, Egypt or Jordan, where, for example, the salaries are not very high. You could potentially make more money freelancing than you can probably make in a full-time job. So the gig economy, it's not a fad. It's definitely something that is becoming more of a necessity, especially in this part of the world.
Great. At this time, if we can bring the lights up a little bit. Do we have microphones in the audience? Yes, we do? Great. If you have any questions, just flag it. We've got people with the signs and the numbers here. We want to open up the floor. Ladies on this side, I know this is a very open floor, but you can come into the inside here and ask your questions as well. Any questions for the panelists, please go ahead and flag them. Don't be shy.
John, can I just make a comment here quickly? Is first of all of you, you know, this is for all the young people out there, but I'll also say that we're all young. And that Gabriel Marquez once said...
That's very beneficial to you and me. I don't think it's the reality, but it's okay.
But for everyone out there, I think, you know, Gabriel Marquez said, we don't stop playing because we get old. We get old because we stop playing. Huh. And all of you, you know, should go out there and try to, I want to build up what Lulu said. Try to start a company. Do a side hustle. Do something. The more you do, the more you build your skills. And life is long, hopefully, and you will pay dividends. Just do things. Try it. Entrepreneurship isn't a spectator sport. And the other thing I just wanted to say, just building off what, and this goes back, Dana said, get that job and only work from 8 till 2, which Pablo knows in Spain. You know, there's this culture of work as little as you can. That's exactly the wrong thing when you're young. Do as much as you can. Get as much skill sets as you can. Because when I was at IBM, it was stay in IBM. But I never, you know, the people who stayed there never learned the skills outside of IBM. It's like we call the greenhouse effect, and I talk about this now with my students. There's a great book called Anti-Fragile, and he talks about how people who avoid risk end up putting themselves in the biggest risk. And you think if you grow up in a greenhouse, and every day you wake up, you say, I'm going to stay in the greenhouse. It's safe in here. There's no rain. The temperature's good. The humidity's good. But if I never leave the greenhouse, I never learn to live outside the greenhouse. So on the increment, each day it makes sense not to go outside the greenhouse. But here's the problem. The greenhouse is going to get blown away someday, and then will you be able to live out there? And let me tell you, it's a lot more exciting getting out of the greenhouse than sitting in the greenhouse every day.
Good. Lulu, you had your hand. Let's go ahead and pick it up.
Just a small comment. I mean, entrepreneurship is about solving problems, right?
Yeah.
So the bigger the problem, obviously, the better, in theory, the idea is. And it's also about, you know, going back to your point, it's about learning and making mistakes. So when I started my business 6 years ago, I had no idea, about all the legal things that I had to go through, the contracts, the company registration, the visas for people, getting insurance for employees, and doing things that, HR and so many things that you end up learning that really you become a much a well-rounded individual than being in one-track kind of job. So.
Good. I'm a little bit confused because I've seen notes from all my panelists, so I have a little bit more insight in what they're thinking than you do in the audience. STEM's a good education, so science, technology, engineering, maths. And then Bill also says, liberal arts are great because it creates depth in individuals. They have a context of the past and they know what they want in the future. By the way, the Crown Prince of this country has incredible depth of the history of Islam and modernizing Islam. How do you blend the best of two different educations? Dana, how do you see it for entrepreneurs? What's the best skills to have? What's the best toolbox to have to go into the world in this area?
So I think this is the key message of this panel, if I may. I think
if you may, you're on the panel. So.
I think the takeaway is that there is a skill set that is relevant to being an entrepreneur. It's relevant to being employed in the future job market, and it's relevant to the exponentially changing world that we're living in at the moment. Enter Industry 4.0, robotics, AI, etc. So there is a skill set there that needs to be, that we need to try to teach and we need to try to acquire to stay relevant, and that is whether you're in the academic world, in the vocational training world, it doesn't matter. And these skills are skills of critical thinking, of rationality, because we, as humans, we bring rationalities and machines don't. Well, not yet anyway. Things like creativity, things like analytical skills. The future job market is scary, and that's going to affect entrepreneurs as well because of how you set up your business and how you deliver services. So we're all in this together. And so these skills need to be a part of whatever you are doing within the academic world, within the training and vocational world, whether you're doing a boot camp to learn to be an entrepreneur, if you're delivering skills as or even services as part of a gig economy. So the answer is this is really it. There's a group of skills that we need to take with us everywhere. And it's going to be relevant across the board for our future.
Bill, you think this is the right toolbox? What do you teach?
So first of all, people come all the time and say, should I drop out of school to be an entrepreneur? And my answer almost all the time is I talk to them, and almost all the time it's no. Because, and this is one of the things important for the Middle East. You want to be an innovation-driven entrepreneur. You want to be an anti-fragile entrepreneur. You don't just want to be a trader that takes something at $1 and sells it for $2. That is a very tenuous place. You want to be able to understand fundamental technology and innovation and be able to do that. And I'll be talking about this at a workshop tomorrow. But I think it's really important that you get a good education because it's not just the STEM, it's also, to get anything done in this world, you have to work with this carbon-based life form called humans. And we learn about that, how to grow up and how to communicate and how to deal with people. And that's very important.
Okay, very good. We have questions from the floor, is that correct? And then we have a question over here. Number 2, we have a question as well. Let's get the people standing up. If you can come into the aisle, it'll make it much easier for the microphone holders. Let's go here first. Identify yourself if you don't mind, and direct the question even better. Thanks.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Shahid Shahir. Thank you all for being with us today. I think entrepreneurship, in a sense, can be a bit elitist. This is coming from a social entrepreneur that has taken a lot of risk to be where I am today, but I'm also humbled by the fact that I do have a bit of a safety net in case any failure happens. So from an ecosystem perspective, practically speaking, how can we lower the risk for people to enter this world? And should we actually, in fact, lower the risk in any way? Yeah.
Great question. Pablo, why don't you jump in first, because you're working in the developing markets.
So,
and Bill, please.
As a social entrepreneur, I totally empathize with you. Social entrepreneurship definitely already, when you start, you already face a lot of challenges, people thinking that you are a non-profit, when you can combine making an impact and also making money. And I think that one of the challenges for entrepreneurs is that sometimes we've been told that, you know, it's all on us. But an entrepreneurship ecosystem, especially like MIT defines it, you know, there are 5 stakeholders: entrepreneurs, investors, universities, corporates, and governments. And all of them have to play a fair share in this game. Unfortunately, I will say that right now entrepreneurs are playing a very good game, but governments sometimes put a lot of barriers. Investors tend to be very risk averse. Universities don't teach entrepreneurship in their curriculum many times, and at the end, that's a big problem. So at the end, what happens is that only people that have that safety net end up to
which is not great, because a lot of ideas get left on the sidelines. Dana, very quickly.
So just to add to Pablo, it is elitist, and the only way we can overcome it is becoming aware of who we are actually trying to reach and address. So in terms of the program that I ran for 4 to 5 years as a social entrepreneur, I went around and fundraised over $3 million over 4 to 5 years to be able to go to the rural parts of Algeria, to go to Tunisia, to go to certain parts, even in the kingdom. We came to the kingdom and we went out to certain parts of the kingdom where you wouldn't find your typical entrepreneurs that are sitting, for example, with an MIT lab. They're what I call grade C and D entrepreneurs versus the A and B, and the people that you see every day are the A and B. They're going to university with you, they're accessing the same kind of information and opportunities, but guess what? There are other grades of people out there living in other areas with remote opportunities, and we need to be responsible and accountable in global citizenship, remember, for delivering a platform where we connect people with scarce opportunities.
Right, there's a need to penetrate. I mean, Mohammed Yunus has been doing this in microfinance, but there seems to be, we're identifying a band that's in between. We have a lot of questions now. I'd ask you to be really direct, and then we'll bring a microphone to the gentleman in the first row after, please. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mohsin Javed, and I'm an MBA graduate from King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals. So I have one question in particular related to entrepreneurship, that even the companies, the services they're providing in terms of entrepreneurship, they're very saturated. You see the social media apps, they're all very similar, providing a similar service. So how to remain creative despite, you need to be in the market, you need to provide even a similar service. How to add the unique value proposition in your own?
Well, that's a good question for Lulu. Did you get the whole question?
No.
There's so many different services out there. Let me know if I didn't get it right. But how do you remain creative when there's a crush of different things coming on, particularly in the digital space today? How do you carve out a space for yourself, would you suggest? You're in the marketplace offering these sort of things.
Yeah, I mean.
You took a big sigh. It's not easy.
Yeah,
then,
yeah, true. I mean, there's plenty of options out there. I'm not sure actually how to answer this.
So, Bill, do you want to jump in? If you have an idea, but you see a lot of competition, how do you carve your space out?
So first of all, if there's competition, that's a good sign. That means there's a market. If there's no competitors, there's no market. So competition should be seen as a good thing. And then you have to be systematic about how you go about it. You have to be disciplined about how you go about it. You have to out-execute them. And you have to think strategically about what things can I do that will be difficult for them to reproduce. And most of all, it comes down to building a team, a great team, a team that has a common vision, shared values, and complementary skills. At the end of the day, most ideas are out there. Facebook wasn't a new idea. Google wasn't a new idea. The iPhone wasn't it's about execution. And to do that, you have to have a great team. So remember, entrepreneurship is not an individual sport, it's a team sport. And if you have a good team, you can beat the competitors.
Interesting. Pablo, and then Lulu. Go ahead quickly, Pablo.
On top of what Bill just said, I will also recommend that you solve a problem that you deeply care about.
Good point.
Many times entrepreneurs, they just want to become entrepreneurs, but the best thing is that you work on something that you really care, that you're really willing to, devote the next 5-10 years to solve that problem. Maybe with the first enterprise it doesn't work, but maybe with the second or the third, or maybe doing a government job, you achieve to solve that problem. And this is exactly what social entrepreneurs do. It's making sure that you are solving the problem that annoys you, that bothers you, that you cannot stand, that you cannot be passive about.
Wow. So you should be very passionate about the business you're in, as opposed to being very technical and autocratic about it.
You also have to be very disciplined. You also have to, you're an entrepreneur at the end, but you have to, really understand the pains of your customers.
Great. Lulu, very quickly.
Yeah, also from what I see at Nabish with the freelancers is I think a lot of times you don't think long term, you think short term, which is not a good thing. So when you are working with a client and you're thinking short term, you're thinking, okay, I want to get this job out, and you might like cut corners on quality or cut corners on customer service or so on. But then this is not good for you in the long term, because at the end of the day it's a small market and people talk, and your reputation is everything. So really guard it with your life. So when you take on a project, whether it's to start a business or to deliver a service as an entrepreneur, do it fully and don't do it unless you can, and really commit to it. And like I said, your reputation is very important.
Okay, we have a couple more questions. If I can have the cameraman move just a second so we can see the gentleman there. Go ahead.
Shukran. I'm Jasser Al-Harbish, Ministry of Education. I'm the Vice Minister for Scholarship Affairs, and we are running one of the most generous scholarship programs worldwide, and it's, I think, the largest after China and India in Saudi Arabia. And we have almost more than 100,000 students studying worldwide, most of them in the US, but we have almost in another 25 to 30 countries. What I want to ask for ideas, not only for the panel, also for the audience, that we were in the past very successful in giving our students the right academic education in different universities worldwide. But we did less in terms of the training and in terms of the entrepreneur side. In the process of integrating the optional practical training, which is the training during or after the study, and this is done in the US mainly, but also in other countries, and there is a clear system for this. But the thing that we are looking now for ideas, and we lack some experience in it, how to integrate entrepreneur as a concept for people who has the right DNA from themselves to start the project. We have great minds, females and males, and they are coming back, and I'm happy today that I see most of the organizing committee, organizing team from our young scholarship graduates from different universities. We want to help them and to put it as a part. If we have like incubator in MIT or something like Technical or Business Valley in University of Arizona, and so on and so on, we want to put it in our system. This is the idea.
Great. I think it's a good question for Bill, because it's one of the questions I wanted to pose to him today. How do you overhaul the education system to incorporate the thought of incubators, for example, and seed capital and understanding how to raise money? How do you put it into a curriculum here? And this is not a complaint only in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, but throughout the Middle East and North Africa, that the education system is clearly not keeping pace with the challenge of tomorrow.
Boy, I could go on for an hour about this. But let me just say that the educational system was built on an Oxford-Cambridge model, which was clergy training clergy. That is not what we're doing here in entrepreneurship. Is knowledge for knowledge's sake. That's not, in entrepreneurship, it's more about what the MIT model, and I went to Harvard as well, but MIT is more about training immigrants to man the Industrial Revolution. It's what they call mind and hands. It's not enough to just have knowledge, you have to put it into practice. And I mentioned something earlier, that entrepreneurship is a craft. And I wrote a paper about this, about why that's important, because we need to teach it not as a science, but as a craft. Yeah. And if you think about that apprenticeship is involved, and entrepreneurship is also different. And I'll just give you this, and then we can talk more afterwards, is to teach entrepreneurship, which frankly not a lot of people are doing well, is you need the 4 H's. You need to get to the heart first. And I will respectfully disagree with you that only certain people can be entrepreneurs. This is not true. This is absolutely not true. If you go to Vietnam, everyone's an entrepreneur. This is like my son saying, I can't learn Spanish. What do you mean you can't learn Spanish? If you were born in a Spanish country, of course you'd learn Spanish. Everybody speaks Spanish. But entrepreneurship is something everybody can do, like a craft. So it starts with the heart. We have to get them to believe they can. We have to get them to think differently. Then we have to go to the head to give them the knowledge to be able to do it. But knowledge is not sufficient. We then need to go to the hands and then make it capability. Put that knowledge to work. And then the last stage, which was from the first question over here, which I thought was a very profound question, was the last stage is home. We need to create communities for entrepreneurs. We need to not only skill them up, but we need to connect them, and we need to make them feel part of a community. Because entrepreneurs can help other entrepreneurs. Don't wait for the big companies to help you. Don't wait for the government to help you. Help each other. And the law of the jungle, as Rudyard Kipling said, which is a quote I say all the time, is the strength of the pack is in the wolf. That means we all need to be strong wolves. But the strength of the wolf is in the pack. And so we as entrepreneurs need to form a pack of entrepreneurs, and then we can support each other. So teaching them those 4 H's, which is much different than teaching programming or physics or chemistry, is the model that we need to think about. And I'm more than willing to talk to you afterwards about it.
Great. Final question from the floor, number 1. If you can stand up quickly, please.
Good morning. My name is Iman Abdushakur. My question is, in the context of believing in yourself and doing the most in your younger years, is it possible to have a full-time job working 9 to 6, 8 to 7, and have a startup on the side? Or should you focus more? I would love to hear what you think about that.
Okay, I'm glad you brought this question up. Dana, you can all kick in, because there's a no-risk solution here where people have a government job, then they try to start up their gig on the side. Takes out the risk, but I think it also eliminates that full-time passion.
See, we were chatting about this earlier, and my personal view is that at one point in the very near future, you'll be able to do all 3 things, which is partake in the gig economy, have a job, because jobs will probably not be, 9 to 6, things are changing, and maybe be part of your own business or a family business. So I don't think we're necessarily far away from that. However, in the context of that we are in right now, and setting up your own startup, and you being very serious about making it take off, I think a 9 to 6 job is a very challenging thing to be doing, because a startup is like a baby. You can't have a baby on the side. I'll feed it at 6 when I come from work. Yeah, maybe it'll survive for a few days, but probably for not very long. It's kind of like, it will need your attention. Now, if you are part of a team and there are other co-founders, there is a very clear roadmap to how you're going to spend your time when you're away from it. Maybe, I never say anything is impossible, but I just think it's very challenging to have a full-time job and try to make your startup successful at a very early stage.
Good. Lulu, quickly, and then we'll take another question there.
So I think a lot of people, when they want to start a business, and I see it a lot, they come to us and they say, I want to build this website, and it has to do this and this and this and this, and there's like 15 features and so on. So I don't think you need to do all of this from day one. So yes, I think you can keep your job, and because I think it gives you some kind of safety net or some kind of financial income to be able to sustain maybe the early phases of doing something, and you can build something called a minimum viable product. So a minimum set of features that you can basically take to market and test with potential client or potential users. Once you have some validation from the market and people like your idea, then you can quit your job, you can go on and raise funding, you can seek angel funding, VC funding, and so on. So I don't think there's a yes or no. I think you can do both, and it's just a matter of choice and whether you have the financials to sustain yourself. Basically, if you quit your job and dedicate yourself to your business.
Sure. Also the energy, right, to make all of it happen. I think. Final question here. Thank you. If you identify yourself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Minal Musa. I'm a pharmacist, and my question is, As a government employee, I have my constant salary, monthly salary, and I really decided to make my own business. So your advice to me is to just start my business while I'm keeping my own career, or should I take a risk and leave my career and start my own business?
I think the answer is the combination, which is look at what you can do while you're still in your job. Maybe you don't have to invest 110% and do everything. Try to get a foundation going. And then when you get to a point where you have to choose, follow your heart. Passion is the key, right? So if your passion is in the business and doing your own business, then follow that.
Okay, very good. Before I take that question from the floor, I think we have to address this revolution that's taking place, whether it's blockchain contracts, artificial intelligence, automation in manufacturing lines and the rest. I'm sure Bill's read these surveys as well, kind of dislocation perhaps of 350 million jobs over the next 10 years. So we have high birth rates here, high youth unemployment, governments want to see diversification, but there's some key forces at play here. How do you act to those key forces, Bill? And is it a threat or an opportunity that this innovation presents to us?
Well, if you look back at history, you see these disruptions all the time, and that's why it creates opportunity. We see this all the time with AI. Blockchain I haven't seen as much, I have to be honest. And I'm not sure that 99% of the people really understand blockchain, but they say the words. But I think we have to focus on problems and opportunities that exist as opposed to the technology. Very often focusing on the technology too much leads you astray. So again, historically, all these things have just changed where the opportunities are, and that's why I feel that we as educational institutions need to not start companies. We have to create entrepreneurs who can adapt, and this anti-fragile characteristic of when there's change, they don't just survive, they thrive. So it's really a skill set to be able to go after, and I'm less worried about blockchain and AI and robotics than I am about the skill set of people to identify problems and opportunities and then match that to technologies that are coming down the road.
Okay, so you have to be much more nimble, I think is what you're saying, the next generation.
Absolutely.
Can you teach that?
Absolutely. Huh. That's to me the essence of entrepreneurship. When I first started teaching entrepreneurship, I'm a late coming academic. I was really an entrepreneur, and I thought my job at the beginning was to help start companies. And I realized, no, that's the job of economic development agencies and investors. And then I realized my job was to help create entrepreneurs who start companies. And now I realize my job is to create anti-fragile human beings, like all the people in this room, so they can create new products and opportunities, whether it's working in a big company or in an NGO or a government or just doing a piano recital. And I think that's the role of education, which is fundamentally different than an economic development agency or an investor.
Wow, so inner strength is part of the equation.
Absolutely.
Pablo, what can you share on this issue?
So I think technology, it's a tool, and at the end, I really agree with Bill. It's all about identifying the problems and making sure that you know who those problems right now are being faced. And the challenge is technology can be used for creating opportunities. It can also, destroy a lot of jobs. But at the end, the main challenge is: are we going to do it at the right speed? Historically, we've been able to do it, but are we going to be able to do that now? And I think that's where entrepreneurs, especially in developing countries, are going to play a big role.
It feels a little bit different this time. Are we not acknowledging the rapid pace of change? Dana? It's pretty revolutionary.
It's so radical. It's beyond. The last decade is crazy. I started my business 9 years ago, and if you told me this is where we will be today, I would have laughed. I would said, you don't know what you're talking about. It's insane. I can't believe when I see kids, 1 or 2 year olds, that are literally born with the skill to swipe. I can barely use an iPad, and you have a 2-year-old that's killing it, you know. So it's just been so exponential, and I think it's just going to get more and more exponential. And trying to keep up is the challenge, and staying relevant is the challenge.
Good. Very quickly, Lou, and then we'll take the question. Go ahead. Very quickly.
Yeah, so I mean, we talk a lot about destruction of jobs, right? But I mean, a lot of new jobs are going to be created as well. You know, jobs that depend on humans, that depends on the human element that can't be replicated. So yes, we might lose some jobs in certain areas, but there will be new areas that will create new jobs and new opportunities.
Tom Friedman talks about this.
Oh, interesting. Okay, good. Take a question from the floor, and then we'll wrap it up.
Keeps changing.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. Very enthusiastic, and I like enthusiasm and entrepreneurship. However, it is oversimplified. Enthusiastic is oversimplified because any small business or big business depends upon enablers and result. Within my control, maybe is leadership, which enthusiasm go with it, but the manpower and the policy and partnership and resources are not within my full control. All these elements or variables go to process to come with a result. And the result, it has customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, and government satisfaction. At the end, I must come to the key performance result. So really, without measurement of all of these factors, enablers and result, it would be very difficult to be only enthusiastic. Thank you very much.
Okay. Bill, do you want to jump in?
Absolutely. I hope everyone heard what he said. That's why I talk about disciplined entrepreneurship. We talk about how you have to have the spirit of a pirate, but you simultaneously have to have the execution skills of a Navy SEAL. Entrepreneurship is not just one thing. It's not simple. You know, Dana mentioned it's like raising a kid. Is there one thing to raising a kid, a child? No, it's a complicated thing. It's hard. And that's the problem with sometimes when you read these things, simplistic things about entrepreneurship. It is not easy. It's not simple. It's not about just enthusiasm and passion and willingness to fail. It's about execution as well. And this is why we need to have a robust entrepreneurship education program. But let me also say, it's not just about processes. If it was all about processes, then big companies would be the great innovators of the world. It's a mix of the spirit of pirate to be different. If all the fish are swimming this way, are you willing to swim that way? Big companies are really good about optimizing process and doing Six Sigma. They're not good about embracing new ideas. So it's not one or the other. It's the combination of the spirit of a pirate with the execution skills of a Navy SEAL. And again, I'd encourage you to come to the workshop tomorrow and I'll explain to you how you teach all this stuff.
Okay, very good. Before I thank the panel, I'm going to invite my former colleague or colleague for life, Zane Virgie, to the stage. Do you want to come on up? Do you have a wireless microphone, by the way? You do, good. Let's give her a nice warm welcome back.
Thank you, John.
It's a funny joke because Zane and I never really spent that much time together in an office, but we felt like we had this kind of connection via satellite for 15 years as the presenter in Atlanta, and me being in different locations like New York or London or Abu Dhabi. So it's great to see you face to face. Let's give a nice warm welcome, but don't leave because I got to say something right after. Fantastic panel. Thanks for all the questions from the floor. Terrific. Really good. Okay, because I'm still wear the hat of a newsman, I'm going to duck out of here, and I think it's related to what you're doing, but I'm not 100% certain, so I'm not going to be rude and say I'm not going to listen to Zane Virgie, but I'm going to make a kind of silent exit out and then run down the hall.
And even though we've always been on satellite with one another, it's always a pleasure to be in the same space with John Defterios. For a few years, we spent some time in the CNN anchor office in London. And I'd just like to let everybody know that John spends more time in makeup than I do. I don't know if that's a risk or a reward of new work.
But the dirty secret is I have to do my own makeup, Zane, so, and I'm pretty damn good at it. No, just joking. I need a lot of help. Okay, thanks a lot. A nice round of applause for the gang as well. I'll exit out. Thanks.
Saudi Arabia is taking really solid steps in building knowledge economy, and that will diversify the economy in general and hopefully accomplish and participate in achieving Vision 2030. We're here today to celebrate and congratulate our first 11 entrepreneurs, that they are innovatives, they are creative, that will be allowed to invest and work and have their opportunity in Saudi Arabia. So they will be able to get entrepreneurship visa through this license. So Saudi Arabia is opening up its market for innovative young entrepreneurs from all over the globe. So I would like to congratulate the achievers, and I would like to invite global youth entrepreneurs that they think they can add and invest a value in Saudi Arabia. We ask them to welcome them in Saudi Arabia, and I wish them the best of luck and happiness, inshallah.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And we would like to invite Your Excellency, Dr. Majid Al-Qasabi, Your Excellency, Dr. Asad Suleiman, Your Excellency Ustad Fahad, to come and join us in the stage and provide the first license and small Amir. Tfadal.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you also to the panelists for your thoughts. That was a very exciting announcement and a very important one as well. I think it's a very special and important moment for us to hear developments like that, and for it to happen during the Misk Global Forum really speaks directly to the Misk Global Forum's agenda when it comes to empowering people to meet the challenge of change. Thank you very much once again to the Minister of Investments, Dr. Majid Al-Qasabi. We'd like now to take a short coffee break. I think we all deserve it after hearing some of these excellent comments and conversations. So let's do that. And I'd just like to remind everyone that coffee will be on the terrace and that there will be concurrent masterclasses or some deep dives taking place as well as a skills garage. So please do attend some of these specific workshops of your choice. We will be back in session in 20 minutes. Thank you.